achieved.
Well, that was one hell of a fight. Zhang Wei Li defending her title, winning via split decision over Joanna Jędrzejczyk in one of the greatest, not just fights of women's mixed martial arts, one of the greatest fights of all time. That was a back and forth affair where both girls laid it on the line. I was watching with a large group of people, and almost every strike, every exchange was just people were on the edge of their seat. People were oohing and awing when someone would buckle and take a step back and then immediately step forward and step into the pocket and throw another big punch or a kick. And just the way these girls were able to turn, go back to their corner, refuel, and come out and do it again, and the damage they were showing, especially Joanna, it was just impressive. It was something to see, and it was amazing. And then to turn around and have the follow-up of Israel Adesanya versus Yoel Romero, which was a stinker on its own. And again, styles make fights, and their styles and their approach to that fight just didn't match up, and understandable. Things are costly. One mistake can cost you everything. So in one exchange, you see two girls go at it and absolutely dismantle each other, and another two gentlemen go square off, and they simply don't perform up to what the expectations were. So it is what it is. But hey, we take the good with the bad in mixed martial arts, and we enjoy the good stuff, and we dump all over the bad stuff, and that's just the way it's going to be. I was a little upset that I saw Islam Makhachev make a comment regarding women not belonging in this sport, or this not being a sport for women. I'm not 100% aware of the time frame, if that was done before, during, or after the co-main event title fight, which obviously was the real main event of the night when things were all said and done. But yeah, it's just like, don't be so dismissive of these people if that was the case, and that's very disappointing. But hey, it is what it is. Nonetheless, a fantastic fight. Would I watch it again? Absolutely. Do I feel Joanna should get the immediate title shot? I don't know. I felt Zhang got 3 rounds in the books and did enough to win the fight. I'd like to see Jessica Andrade and Rose Namajunas fight next, and then the winner of that get their shot at the title, and then Joanna can have the winner of all that after. I'm cool with that. That's not a problem for me. So we'll see how things play out. But welcome back to Kamikaze Overdrive MMA Predictions. Always, I am your host, Scott Johnson, and on this episode of the show, we are breaking down the upcoming March 14th UFC Fight Night Brasilia, or UFC Fight Night 170, or UFC on ESPN Plus 28, whatever you want to call it. Nonetheless, it's going to be a fantastic night of fights. March 14th is going down. We've got 5 fantastic main card fights. All of my preliminary picks will be available on kamikazeoverdrive.net in written form, but I'll be breaking down these fights verbally for you on the show. Again, the Brazil cards are a lot of fun. And one thing I noticed about this card, it seems like a lot of times you get fights when you go to Brazil that are clearly meant to get Brazilians wins. I think this card is just a fantastic bit of matchmaking. We have a ton of good fights up and down the card that are really going to test the Brazilian fighters, and they're very well put together, and that seems to be the norm more and more, and that's why predicting fights is becoming more and more difficult. It's because the fighters are taking their games to the next level, and the matchmaking is becoming better and better, and it's just small mistakes or underperformances, and a fighter's game, a fighter that you expect to win hands down comes up on the short end of the stick. It's crazy to see that. I'm coming off a fairly reasonable 8-3 show. I had a bit of a slump to start the year, but 8-5, 7-5, 8-4, 8-3. So things have turned around a little bit of late. My HBC, my hardcore betting pack, has won back-to-back decent units, 21.93 and then 23.99. I did get a small gain with the CBC, which again, for the casual bettors last week out. I lost one key fight, which was the Zhang Li, or Zhang. My apologies, I'm mispronouncing his name. The Leech, Li Zhang. Whatever. I'm getting it wrong. He lost to Neil Magny, unfortunately, and that kind of cost me. But other than that, it was a fairly strong night overall. And of course, the other one was one of the opening fights tonight with Giga getting the victory in just a bullshit decision. It wasn't a robbery. It felt like it was the same thing as his first fight out. He faded and didn't fight very well in rounds 2 and 3, but got gifted a decision he probably didn't deserve. But hey, we'll keep it rolling. I'm looking forward to this card. It has a lot of betting potential, a lot of good matchups, a lot of close odds again, which is a lot of fun. But on that note, we've got 5 main card fights. The betting packs are for sale, $15. You can purchase them, get everything I do in one bet pack. I break down the entire card top to bottom, and I also do fantasy picks as well. Props, parlays, confidence picks. I rank all my picks, all that fun business. And follow me on Twitter at KO_predictions. And if you're new to my channel, please like my video, subscribe to my channel, all that fun, social media stuff that we do to promote our videos. And hey, you never know how long this is going to last, so enjoy it while we can. And I will stop talking and get to that first prediction of the night. The first fisticuffs of the evening going down the UFC's lightweight division is the 24-7 Francisco Trinaldo takes on the Canadian John the Bull Makdessi with a current record of 17 wins and 6 losses. Now, Trinaldo put together a very impressive 7-fight winning streak not that long ago and had him really, rising up to his prime in the UFC, especially for a fighter who's a little bit longer in the tooth with a later career. But since then, he's alternated wins and losses, most recently defeating King Bobby Green to cap off this alternating and looking to kind of piece together a bit of a streak here. Now, for Makdessi, he's won 3 in a row. Nice little run for him. Actually, a winner in 4 of his last 5, beating notable guys like Ross Pearson and Abel Trujillo during that stretch. Physically, Trinaldo 1 inch taller. He'll have a 2 inch reach advantage, but the Canadian is the younger man by a sizable 7 years. Now, for John Makdessi, the first thing we got to look at here, he has never fought outside of his home Canada or the United States. He is stuck strictly to North America when it comes to mixed martial arts. And when you look at his records, at home fighting in Canada, he's 8-2. Very impressive record. 80% win rate in Canada in the UFC. We're not talking about his pre-UFC stuff. In the United States, not quite as good. He's gone to the United States 6 times in the UFC, and he's only won twice. So that's a little concerning there, saying maybe he doesn't travel so well. Now, this is also important because we recognize that now he's going, for the first time ever, he's going into Brazil, and it's very difficult to win decisions in Brazil. And Makdessi's track record of close fights going to the scorecards and not always turning out in his favor is a little bit of an issue here. Now, he has won 3 straight decisions, which is good. He's been fairly dominant in those fights, but again, they haven't been the biggest, most impressive opponents, especially guys like Trujillo and Pearson, where they're names, but they're guys who were kind of at the end of their UFC tenure. He has fought in a number of close decisions. He's had a couple of splits that are 1-1. He's lost a couple of fights that everybody thought he had won. Now, on the flip side of things, Francisco Trinaldo overall, when fighting at home in Brazil against a non-Brazilian opponent, he's done it 13 times in the UFC. He's a very impressive 11-2. And I say that because he's fought a couple times at home fighting other Brazilians. For example, he fought Gleison Tibau very early in his UFC career and lost that one. Now, going back to against non-Brazilians, on the scorecards, perfect 6-0. So when he goes to the scorecards, and he's had some close ones as well, and he gets the nod every time, or has so far. So you see the precedence I'm kind of setting up here as to what could be a factor in this matchup. Now, Trinaldo, the reason he's found success is he's been able to pace himself better. His cardio has improved. His ground game's improved. He's made some late career adjustments that are very impressive. He's very good with the pressure and his power moving forward. He's got the solid pace and that forward pressure that really make him effective. Now, for Makdessi, he's a very talented counter striker, so these two go together very nicely. He throws a lot of unorthodox techniques, a lot of those front leg kicks, a little limited windup, a nice sharp jab, spears opponents as they come in, and is very effective. Overall, he averages more strikes per minute than Trinaldo, which is huge. But he also gives up a little bit more. He gets hit a little bit more often than Trinaldo, which is also worth noting here. So it's not quite an even exchange, but it's close. The big thing with Makdessi is he doesn't always move backwards, but he moves backwards a lot. And he allows his opponent to take the center stage and press forward and engage more often. Trinaldo, the other thing Trinaldo has going for him is Makdessi has good takedown defense, but it's not impenetrable. And Trinaldo, if he can work in takedowns, that's big. If he can threaten with takedowns, that also at least augments what he brings to the table and puts them in a position where, hey, look, we don't know, how they scored this round. Well, here was something that would change the pace of it. Trinaldo almost took him down or pinned him on the cage and backed him up. That could be enough, especially in Brazil, to add that depth to his attack to give him a nod in a very close round. It's worth noting that the Canadian has landed more offense in 12 consecutive fights. He has landed more strikes than his opponent in 12 consecutive fights, but he's lost 4 of those matchups. That's what I talk about. His style isn't always going to equate to victories because sometimes he is a little bit too passive or at least willing to sit back and counter-strike. Look at Trinaldo. I think he's going to keep it very close on the feet as far as the volume. I think he's going to push forward more. He's possibly going to land a takedown periodically or, like I said, win that clinch battle. He's very physically strong. Again, Makdessi's style doesn't tend to travel well, as indicative of his success in the United States at just 2-4. And again, being this is the first time he's going to go to Brazil, that's also concerning. The odds are closer than I expected they would be here. Makdessi's, again, in a better spot as far as his recent streak, but it's against lower-level competition. And I think this is going to be a close fight, and I think there could be some people claiming that there was a bit of a robbery here, but ultimately I'm going to side with the local, and my prediction is Francisco Trinaldo to defeat John Makdessi by decision, possibly a split decision, but I'll take Trinaldo. Bumping up to the UFC's light heavyweight division, formerly in contention, maybe not anymore, but Johnny Walker returns to action, bringing with him a record of 17 wins and 4 losses. He takes on the Ukrainian 26-7, formerly known as Al Capone, Nikita Krylov, returning for his second. This is a second stint in the UFC. Now, Walker is coming off a loss to Corey Anderson. He had won 3 consecutive bouts in impressive fashion, started his UFC run, got into a high-profile matchup with Corey Anderson, and got beat. That certainly has put the brakes on his rise to contention, and they were pairing his name with Jon Jones. And I would think if he beat Corey Anderson, he might have got that fight with Jan Blachowicz, or maybe even got a shot to go right to fight Jon Jones in the not-too-distant future. I don't know. He had won 9 in a row. As is 3 in the UFC. Khalil Roundtree, Justin Ledet, and Misha Cirkunov, all decent opponents that he took out. But again, getting TKO by Corey Anderson certainly slowed him down. Now for Nikita Krylov, he is coming in on his second stint, as I said, in the UFC. This is the second time around with the promotion. In the first time, he did fantastic. He won 5 in a row to start his UFC, 5 in a row at one point, especially after cutting down to light heavyweight after starting in the heavyweight division. He lost to Misha Cirkunov in a fantastically entertaining bout. Opted not to resign with the UFC, went back to the regional scene, won 4 in a row, and he's come back. He's gone 1-2. But it's been a solid 1-2. He had a great start against Blachowicz, who obviously is one of the guys close to the top of the division, and then got beat. He avenged a loss to OSP. And then he had a very good split decision fight with Glover Teixeira, which means a lot more than we actually know. It's a lot more significant than the loss itself, which we're going to talk about. Now, physically, Walker's a massive man, 6'5", 6'6", depending on what source you look at, 3 inches taller than Nikita, and he'll have a 5-inch reach advantage. They are the same age, though. Now, both these guys, as I said, they're young, exciting fighters with promising talents and physical gifts, but they're also quite flawed in some areas. Krylov has started to mature, though, as a fighter, and he's in a better stage, as far as I'm concerned, than Walker is, at least from what I've seen. His decision loss to Glover Teixeira, it was a tough fight, but he put forth one of the best efforts we've seen in the UFC for him to date. He's had a career of one-and-done fights. 1 round, and either he wins or he loses. He goes all out for 1. Maybe it goes early in the second round, but that's pretty much what you're going to get from 7-8 minutes of hard fighting, and that's it. And maybe that's all it takes to get the victory, but sometimes that can be an issue once you get to that level where you can't simply knock every guy out of there as quickly as possible. Now, recently, he has gone 2 rounds or more in 5 of his last 6 fights. He has won 4 of those, all in the second round. In the Glover fight, he put up a hell of a fight, lost a split decision against a very talented fighter, and again, it was a huge effort. In that matchup, he wasn't nearly as rushed on the feet. He used his jab effectively. He was doing damage. Glover was coming forward, and Nikita was popping him. And he stayed defensive. He didn't open up and just blow out his cardio or open himself up defensively. On the mat, he survived a couple of bad spots. He had some trouble off his back, but he then got to Glover's back, and Glover is no fucking picnic on the ground. And Nikita had a lot of success at times. He nearly had a rear naked choke at one point. He did some damage from top position. He mounted him. That's damn impressive. And overall, he's got a pretty good submission and grappling skill set, especially from top position. He's got heavy hands. He comes from that karate background that allows him to be a little bit diversified and unique. He sets a relatively solid pace, even when he's not going, balls out trying to finish you. On top of that, he's got 32 fights of experience. You combine all that together with a more focused defensive approach, and improve cardio and pacing, that's going to be a decent fighter. Is he going to be a world champion? I don't think so. But hell, what do I know? He's one of these guys who's going to make his mark at some point. If not, he hasn't already. Now, it's also worth noting this is his first trip to Brazil. But he's fought a lot of Brazilians before. He's fought Glover, Fabio Maldonado on the regional scene for Mauricio Barrosa, Rogério de Lima. He's had and he's 3-1 in those fights, so he's got a lot of experience. He's only lost being that split decision, so the guy's got a lot of experience fighting Brazilians as well. Now, Johnny Walker, the guy's been smashing guys. 14 of his 17 wins have come by knockout. He's gone to decision once, he won it. 14 of his 17 wins have come in the first round. All 3 in his UFC victory have come in the first round, and quick in the first round, into the first half pretty much. Now, outside of the opening round, he's gone there 5 times. He's 3-2, so not amazing, not terrible. All right, so there you are. Now, he's very long, obviously. He throws big power. He can do a lot of damage with a variety of techniques. And he can hit most of his opponents when they can't reach him. Just with regular strikes, not when he's throwing like big kicks or flying knees or anything like that. Now, he was really confident, probably overconfident going into the Anderson fight, really laid back, and that cost him. Or was it the step up in competition? Was it both? Was he just not ready or mature enough to prepare for that step up in competition? That's a great question. The other thing you have to look at was it the Misha Cirkunov fight, and when he did the worm and dislocated his shoulder? It's like his fight IQ and decision making. That also raises some questions there. And again, is he putting everything into it? We've also heard rumors he's been, or at least seen stuff where he blamed almost everybody possible for his last loss instead of taking account, holding accountability. Good fighters and just good people at anything hold themselves accountable when they slip up, and he needs to do that. So that's certainly a question about his mental state. He has been knocked out 3 times. He got cracked by Anderson at range and couldn't recover and just didn't know what to do and eventually got finished standing. His cardio is also a major issue. If he's pushed, as we saw in his contenders bout, he will slow down. Even in that fight where he was kind of leading the dance, it wasn't like he was being pushed that hard. He was kind of setting the pace. He gassed out. Now, Walker's at home, which is big, but he's also moved to TriStar recently, which is also a big move and can help a lot of guys, as we'll talk about in the main event tonight. But it might not be enough to show all those changes. A move sometimes takes a fight or two before you start to see those changes make an impact, before you really get them ingrained in a fighter. Overall, Krylov's more durable. His only TKO loss came at heavyweight due to exhaustion, with a heavyweight Soa Palele on top of him pounding down. That's not Walker's style. Krylov has power, he has takedowns, and he has a grappling style to make those takedowns really a major concern for Walker. Now, could Johnny stop him early? Absolutely. But look for Krylov to press forward, put a strong pace on him, get inside those long arms, and really go to work. Krylov's coming off a strong performance in a defeat. Walker's coming off something that might have exposed him a little bit and might make him a little bit gun-shy to step in there. That third knockout loss certainly has people start to think, hey, am I that vulnerable? Walker's at home. I think that might actually hurt his focus. He might play to the crowd too much and be too distracted coming into the matchup. I think it's a great fight. I'm really looking forward to it. It's a long prediction because I think it's going to be a fun fight, whether it lasts 2 minutes or full 15. Nonetheless, my prediction is Nikita Krylov to defeat Johnny Walker by submission. Fight number 3 in the main card transpires in the UFC's lightweight division as Brazil's Renato Moicano, with a current record of 13 wins, 3 losses, and 1 draw, takes on Damir Hadzovic, currently with a record of 13 wins and 5 defeats. Now, Moicano is moving up to lightweight after making a fairly sizable run at 145 pounds. He's looking to maybe change things up a little bit, and he looked like he was draining himself a little bit to make 145, so this could be a very good move. He's coming off back-to-back TKO losses to Jose Aldo and Korean Zombie, 2 of the legends of the division. He had won 5 of 6 to start his UFC run, with his only loss to Brian Ortega mixed in. So the guys that have beat him, high-caliber opposition. Now, for Hadzovic, he lost a decision to Christos Giagos in his last matchup. He did have back-to-back wins over Nick Hines and Marco Polo Reyes, and overall is 3-3 in the UFC. Physically, Moicano 2 inches taller, 2-inch reach advantage. He's the younger man by 3 years. Hadzovic has primarily fought at lightweight, so he's used to this division. We'll see how that impacts Moicano coming in. Now, this seems to be like a fight that's maybe it's that typical fight you'd expect in a Brazilian card. A Brazilian given an opponent who has some clear vulnerabilities that he can exploit. Now, with the fact that Moicano's moving up a division, that does add a different level of uncertainty in there, so that needs to be taken into account. But the other thing that needs to be considered is that Moicano has been knocked out in 2 of his last 3 losses. And the one thing Hadzovic brings to the table that's very concerning is that he has 7 wins by knockout, 2 in the UFC. The guy's a fucking big hitter. He hits hard. When he hits you, you can be in trouble. Hadzovic is a dangerous striker. He's got power in his hands, and he's willing to engage, press forward, and let his hands go. Moicano, absolutely capable on the feet. He's beaten some pretty technically sound guys. Kelvin Cater, he dropped Cub Swanson with a jab before submitting him. He beat Jeremy Stevens, for the most part winning that fight on the feet. He's got some solid leg kicks. He fights a pretty smart game. He'll work from the outside of state of danger against a heavy hitter. He'll counter-strike against someone who's super aggressive. He fights pretty intelligently, and he's not going to show you the same game plan twice, which I really like about him. Now, for Hadzovic, he needs to keep this fight standing. That goes without saying. But it's not a guarantee that he's going to win this matchup. It's his best chance, to land something big or to hurt him a couple of times and outwork him for the duration. He does have the edge in powers. Moicano's never knocked anyone out, even though, as I said, he dropped Cub Swanson. He's never been known for, big punching power. He can do some damage. We saw in the Ortega fight, he held his own until Ortega hurt him and forced him to panic grapple, and it got submitted. And Hadzovic could, if he can keep it standing for the duration, could keep tagging him and eventually get him out of there late. The thing with Hadzovic is he's had trouble staying vertical. 4 takedowns in his comeback win over against Marcin Held. He had 9 ins lost to Alan Patrick, 6 against Giagos, who's been kind of a run-of-the-mill UFC guy, but hey, his wheelhouse is takedowns, and he was able to exploit it. Hadzovic's never been subbed, so he's pretty good defensively on the ground. It's just he spends too much time there. He has 3 and 4 indecisions with a lot of takedown-oriented offense from his opponents mixed into those losses. For Moicano, 6 wins by sub, 2 in the UFC. His takedown numbers have not been crazy, but they're still there, and they're a big enough threat. For Renato, he demonstrates that smart fighting style. It's hard to see him not taking down Hadzovic at some point. Damir has been to Brazil before. He lost Alan Patrick in kind of a blowout. It was a good experience, but is it enough to build on to say he's going to be prepared for this fight? Possibly. But again, it's only one time down there, and again, he's fighting a very different opponent in Moicano. Ultimately, look for the Brazilian here to take him down over and over again, grind him out from top position, look for openings. He'll still land strikes. There'll be some good striking exchanges. I think Moicano can hold his own there and certainly win some of those striking exchanges enough to further augment any takedowns he lands. Watch that arm triangle choke. Renato was pretty slick on the mat. And I think he actually gets the first submission here. So my prediction is Renato Moicano to defeat Damir Hadzovic by submission. In the co-main event of the evening, what a matchup we have here. In the UFC's welterweight division's former title challenger in both the welterweight and middleweight classes, the 28-9 Demian Maia takes on the 17-3 Gilbert Burns. Now, this is a BJJ/MMA fan's dream when to see these two go at it. Two elite level jiu-jitsu black belts that have transitioned their skills very effectively to mixed martial arts. Maia 14 wins by submission in his career. Burns has 8 over a smaller sample size. Very damn impressive. Burns comes into this fight having won 4 in a row and 6 of 7. His only loss was to Dan Hooker. He has back-to-back wins over Gunnar Nelson and Aleksei Kunchenko. Very sizable, impressive victories. For Maia, he has won 3 in a row, which is crazy to think back. He was struggling there for a bit. Now he's back on track. He submitted Lyman Good and Ben Askren, which cost me a fuck ton of money. I thought Askren could grind him out. He won a decision over Rocco Martin in a very impressive fashion. And again, he had lost 3 in a row to a trio of welterweight champions: Tyrone Woodley, Colby Covington, interim champion, and the current champion, Kamaru Usman. So very, very impressive. For Maia, it's worth noting he's a former middleweight. We know that. He's fought 185 pounds before. 3 inches taller, 1 inch reach over Burns, who's a former lightweight. Yes, he was straining himself to get into lightweight, but Maia could never make lightweight. So there's a little bit of a size there for Maia, even though Burns is a big hulking man himself. Burns is also 9 years younger, so that's worth noting as well. Now, when you look at Demian Maia's defeats, they've come against, as I said, Usman, Covington, Tyrone Woodley, going back further, Rory McDonald, Jake Shields, Chris Weidman, Mark Munoz, and Anderson Silva. And we're not going to go back any further than that. Of those 8 losses, he has only lost 1 time to a non-champion. And we're also including Bellator and Strikeforce. We had Usman, Covington, Woodley, Weidman, and Silva have all worn UFC gold. McDonald, a Bellator champion, and Shields, a Strikeforce champion, and winning various other titles as well. Very impressive list of opposition. Mark Munoz, a good fighter in his time, but hey, just not quite there. That's impressive. That's 2011. That's the last time Maia lost to a guy who hasn't worn a UFC strap or a major promotions title belt. So where does Gilbert Burns fit into this? Is he elite? He's pretty damn good. How does he stack up against these fighters that normally beat Maia? Recently, it's been good wrestlers that could simply avoid Maia's grappling. Guys that could counter wrestle or anti-wrestle and avoid going to the mat and then force Maia to strike with them. On the flip side of things, he's fought good grapplers before, and he's beat them because they weren't forced to engage him on the mat. Ben Askren, Rocco Martin, Carlos Condit, Gunnar Nelson, all exceptionally good ground fighters that couldn't stay vertical, dragged into a grappling match, tried to engage, and it fucking didn't work. When you look at Maia, he has won his last 9 fights when he can land at least 1 takedown. You go back to Rory McDonald, was the last time that he gave up a takedown, or that an opponent gave up a takedown, and that was able to overcome and beat Maia, and that's because Maia gassed out in that matchup after a strong first round. When you look at Burns' last 3 fights, the guy's been damn impressive as well. He's had 2 late notice fights versus Gunnar Nelson and Aleksei Kunchenko, and he's won both of them. He had a late notice opponent change in Davis there, and he beat him at lightweight. He seems to be a fighter who thrives in these late notice scenarios. Sometimes guys just are looser. They come into these matchups feeling better about themselves, less pressure, less build up. Their mental state's a little clearer because they haven't been, getting all hyped up for it, and they fight better. Does that change here? This has been a matchup, as far as I can tell, it's been set for a while, and it hasn't been changed. Now, Gilbert has shown he can do a hell of a lot of damage on the feet. And obviously that's what we're talking about here is can he beat Maia on the feet? Maia can hold his own. He's very durable. Gilbert tends to get guys out of there with his hands. His only one loss for Maia was that knockout loss to Marquardt, which was just devastating a number of years ago. And if you only have that in 37 pro bouts as a grappler, you've only been knocked out once, that's impressive. Gilbert Burns, while he has power, he does overextend a little bit when he throws. He opens himself to getting taken down, or counter-struck, but more importantly, taken down. We have seen a few fighters take him down, not many, but a lot of guys don't have the chops to even consider taking him down or the willingness to go to the ground with him, where Demian Maia absolutely does. And Gilbert has openly said in the media that, hey, I have no qualms going to the ground with Demian Maia. And that could prove problematic. We have yet to see anyone out-grapple Demian Maia, at least recently. Jake Shields, I think, is the last one I can remember that was able to go to the ground with him and routinely reverse him and get the better of him. Anti-wrestling or anti-grappling, absolutely. Guys that can create that clinch, defend that takedown, create separation, and get the fuck away from them, they can be effective. I don't see Burns finding much success on the ground. Maia is a fairly strong guy who's a mountain on top of you from top position, who is a hazard from bottom position, and I think Gilbert can be broken. We've seen him broken at times in fights. Michel Pahesh's fight, Prze's fight, it comes to mind. I know it was quite a while ago at lightweight when he was cutting, but still, if you can get him down and he starts realizing he's not the better fighter on the ground in this matchup, that's going to mentally fuck him up. Damian Maia was damn impressive against Gunnar Nelson. Yeah, and I know Burns beat him, but Maia took Nelson into his wheelhouse and beat him. Rocco Martin, another very physically strong grappler, and Maia took it to him. I think he can do the same thing here. I think Maia's going to take him down. He's going to keep him down. He's going to grind him out for at least 2 rounds. He might have to hang on in the 3rd round and kind of do that backpedal and avoid the big power and just jab and hang on and survive. Again, this could be a split decision as well, but it's hard for me to overlook what Damian Maia has done in the past. So my prediction is Damian Maia to defeat Gilbert Burns by decision. Moving now to the main event of the evening. We have a fantastic main event in the UFC's lightweight division as the 18-5-0 Kevin Lee, the Motown Phenom, takes on Do Bronx Charles Oliveira, 28-8-0 for Oliveira. Lee is coming off an impressive performance, a rebirth, if you will, defeating Gregor Gillespie. I had Gillespie in that fight, and Lee damn impressed me. He's training with Faraz. He's training at TriStar. He's almost GSP-like with a lot of his skill set and his body type, and this is a great fucking fit for him. He had lost back-to-back fights in 3 of 4, but look at the guys he lost to. Former champion Rafael dos Anjos, interim champion and title contender Tony Ferguson, just the fucking boogeyman, and Ally Quinta. So no knocks on Lee's record there. Oliveira, 6-fight winning streak coming into this matchup. He is damn impressive. He's had some nice little runs in the UFC, but this is obviously his best at this point. He has 7-1 since returning to lightweight, so that's very impressive. His only loss coming to Paul Felder in a fight he nearly got Felder out of there with early submissions and got finished, and all of his wins in that stretch have been finishes. So this guy is damn lethal. Oliveira 1 inch taller. Lee will have a 3-inch reach advantage, and Lee is the younger man by 3 years, which is crazy considering Oliveira has always been very young and youthful, and now he's actually the older man here. Now it's worth looking at this. Lee, this is his 2nd time going to Brazil. He went to Brazil and fought Francisco Trinaldo, who is a cult hero in Brazil, and he beat them. And I know sometimes I said previously that fighting once in Brazil is enough, but for a guy like Kevin Lee, who fucking just exudes confidence in a lot of cases, knowing he's already gone into Brazil and won a fight there, that's huge for him. But Charles Oliveira in the UFC, when fighting at home, he is 5-0. As a pro, he is 16-0 in Brazil, so he is fighting he has home field advantage here, and he has success at home field advantage. And as far as he's concerned at this point in time, his mental state, he's undefeated, he is untouchable at home, and that certainly is a factor here. Now, both of these guys are absolutely multidimensional. Both guys can operate on the mat and on the feet and win fights and be successful. Now, when you look at the striking component of this matchup, Oliveira is super dangerous because he can throw anything he wants. He's got back-to-back knockouts, and he's not afraid to go to his back. He will just step into the pocket and throw flying knees and kicks and punches because the guy is lethal off his back, and his opponents know that. And on top of all that, he's more effective because his opponents recognize that if they aren't careful and he gets a body lock or a trip or even just jumps to their back standing, they're in a whole world of trouble. So while they're defending their striking, his striking that's coming their way, they're also worried about what grappling opportunities he has set up in his mind and what he's looking to employ. And again, because he's willing to pull guard, shoot a single, shoot a double, latch onto you in the clinch and roll to your back, there are so many things going through a fighter's mind when they're facing Charles Oliveira. How the fuck am I going to defend against all this? As I said, he's knocked out each of his last 2 opponents. He knocked out a number of guys in the regional scene, 8 overall. Because, again, flying knees, elbows. He has that unreal flow of offense. He can just get opponents out of there. I like the way he fights at close range, where he can, again, shoot and clinch up, land short-range strikes. His opponent might shoot in as well because if they get tagged with some stuff, they're looking, his body's right in front of him. Let's change levels and change the complexion of this fight. And he can then attack for the sub. He's got that nasty guillotine. If he gets your neck, it's fucking over. Or he can sweep you and get in top position and go to work there. Now, for Lee, he fights very long. He almost always has a reach advantage, which is something that will be interesting here, as usually Oliveira is the lankier man in his fights, but in this situation, Lee does have a longer reach. He's got a ridiculously long reach, and it's only 3 or 4 inches advantage in this fight. Usually it's longer, but still it's the advantage he has. Lee fights very long. He pumps out a very long left jab. Even his right hand, very straight and down the pipe, which is very effective. When he took out Gillespie, he landed a nice punching combination and followed that brutal head kick, set things up nicely, and Gillespie thought he might have been out of range, and then boom, down he goes. Kevin Lee does get hit quite a bit, and he will rely on his takedowns to negate some lack of defense, which he will show on the feet, which, hey, Charles Oliveira is going to absolutely welcome that. If Lee gets a little sloppy, gets hurt on the feet, and shoots for a takedown, Oliveira is going to go for your neck. And we've seen him deal with very strong grapplers in the past, strong wrestlers in the past, and have success. Guys like Nick Lentz, Will Brooks, these individuals who should be able to physically dominate from top position, and Oliveira's been a nightmare for them. That being said, Lee is one of the strongest guys you're going to face on the mat. He has taken down a lot of very good grapplers. And again, he might look at a guy like Charles Oliveira and say, I'm going to take you down, and I'm going to show what Anthony Pettis did and show what Paul Felder did. Is if you can survive the initial exchanges, you can turn the fight in your favor. I don't like the fact that Lee tends to wear down and get tired, but that isn't until very late in fights. That isn't until rounds 4 and 5. And you got to put a hell of a good pace on him to get him there, like Dos Anjos did, like Tony Ferguson did. I think Ferguson did it in 3 rounds. In those matchups, Lee looked really good. I thought he was winning. I had Dos Anjos to win that matchup, and I thought Lee was winning that fight up until Dos Anjos finished him. He was having a lot of success against Tony Ferguson. He mounted Tony Ferguson and absolutely blasted him. A lot of people are talking about Lee as being one of those nightmare matchups for Khabib because he is so strong wrestling-wise, and if he can defend those takedowns and force Khabib into a striking exchange, the playing field levels significantly. Oliveira hasn't won a fight after round 2 since 2015. He lost his only other recent fight to go to round 3. So he's not a type of guy, while he puts a great pace on you, he's not the type of guy who's going to get you into late into round 3 or 4 or 5 and still be pounding away on you and you're going to fade. He goes for it hard early. Lee is a physically bigger man. Lee had to go up to 170 because he was having issues making weight. I'm hoping he makes weight here. He did make weight and look good in his last fight. Where Charles Oliveira has gone to 145. There is no fucking way Kevin Lee is making 145 pounds. The guy's a beast. He can barely make 155. So that tells us right now just the physicality of Lee is going to be significant. Just his shoulders and his weight and his ability to lean on guys and to physically withstand a guy like Charles Oliveira on the ground, that's huge. Yes, technique can overcome strength and power, but it's more difficult for technique to overcome strength and power and physicality when it's combined with also very good technique. Look for Lee to defend and avoid Oliveira's grappling and capitalize on it if Charles gets reckless. Charles has been submitted multiple times because he is so willing to go to the ground. And Kevin Lee's that type of guy that if you fuck up with Kevin Lee, he's going to punish you on the mat. Lee is more durable overall. We have seen Oliveira at times get tagged and get hurt. He should be able to avoid the bad spots. He has faced better competition. He's in a better spot now that he's at TriStar and had a couple, some training camps there and starting to build on that. He lost his coach before, so he was a little bit aimless for a bit there, and he seems to have righted the ship. Oliveira could hurt him on the feet and grab a sub, but it's not likely. Lee can be hurt on the feet. We saw Barbosa hurt him, but again, I don't know if that's going to be the case here. Yes, we're concerned about fighting in Brazil, but Lee's that type of guy who will go into a place like Brazil and fucking feed off that scenario and come out. He'll play the villain and he'll engage. He'll love it. Lee uses his distance strikes in here to keep Oliveira out of range, to pop him, to back him up. He'll use positional control to keep Oliveira out of those spots early that he wants, and Oliveira will start to grind down just a little bit. He will break him down, and my prediction is Kevin Lee to defeat Charles Oliveira by TKO. So those are my 5 main card predictions for UFC Fight Night 170. What a good card. Lee Oliveira is a great fight. Burns Maia is a great fight. Krylov Walker is very entertaining. Makdessi Trinaldo will be close as well. You look at, on the prelims, Formiga Moreno, good stuff. Markos Ribas, also fun. Dos Anjos Kunchenko, it just keeps coming hot. Yaya versus Barzola is a nice stylistic matchup. There's just a lot of really good back and forth action on this card that I'm very much looking forward to for a fight night. It's a good fight. It's a good card overall. This could be a pay-per-view if you put on a title fight on top of all of it. Fucking awesome stuff. But and as I said, all my prelims will be available at kamikazeoverdrive.net throughout the week. Check them out. Please click it, like my video. If you like it, comment. Let me know what you think. I know not everybody agrees with me, and that's fine. It's part of the great aspect of the internet. What else is going on? If you want to buy my bet packs, please do so. As I've preached in the past, if you're having a lot of success doing your thing, whether you're following someone else or you're doing it on your own, fantastic. Keep doing what you're doing. The goal here is that we're all trying to make money and win from take money from the books, because that's who we're looking to take cash from and put it in our pocket. So please keep it up. If you're struggling or if you want to change a pace or just want some other insight, by all means consider buying my bet pack. It's just $15, or you can subscribe and save yourself $20 over the next 2 months. Follow me on Twitter at KO_predictions. follow me on Facebook, which I just post some stuff on Facebook. It's not really that predominant as well. And as always, guys, I really appreciate you tuning in. Always am a big fan of my fans. And thanks, guys. We'll talk to you soon. See you after the bell.